and welcome back to day 2 of BI Basics. It's still day 1 for me, which is why I'm wearing the same shirt, but for you, it's day 2. And today we're going to talk about how to sort different columns, how to group and ungroup things, how to add qualifiers to the report, to limit the scope of the report, and then also how to add filters. So let's get started. So looking at the report, this is the report that we started yesterday. One thing I wanted to mention actually is how to move columns around. So if you're trying to move, like let's say employee number to before employee name, all you have to do is highlight the column of the report and drag it. And you can see it kind of starts blinking on the page. That's just showing you exactly where you're moving it to. So once you let go of the column, you'll see that it moved forward. So just wanted to point that out. Another thing I wanted to talk about is sorting. So let's say we wanted to sort this report by company code. In order to do that, you just have to highlight the column and then hit this little sort download or down arrow option. And then you can choose ascending or descending. Once you select that, you'll see either an up arrow or a down arrow. That's how you know the report is sorting by that particular column. But let's say we wanted to sort by company code and then employee number. If you actually go to employee number and do the same thing, you're going to see it actually replaces it versus adds to, meaning we just changed it from sorting by company code to now sorting by employee number. But what should you do if you want it to actually do both? The secret behind that is to actually hit this little sort down arrow and then edit layout sorting. So this allows you to sort multiple columns within a report. And so all you have to do is double click on whatever datum item you want to add, and then you can see the order in which it's sorting. So right now it's sorting by employee number first and then company code. We actually want the opposite. So you just drag this and then you can change the order of your sorting items. Once you hit OK, you're going to see that arrow now on both columns. So that's how you know that it worked and it's sorting by both those columns. Another thing I wanted to show you is how to group or ungroup a section. So you're going to select the column that you want to group or ungroup, and then you're going to hit group or ungroup. And then you can see it adds this little icon here. That's how you know the report is grouping by that specific data item. And one thing we didn't talk about yesterday is actually running the report. So to run the report, you're just going to hit this little play icon. And if you actually hit the drop down to the right, you have different options here. By default, it's going to run in HTML. So if you're fine with that, you can just hit the play icon. And you'll see the difference on what it looks like for a report to be sorted versus unsorted. So sorted basically just means that it lists it once versus on every single row, and it merges that together. So you may like that, you may not like that. I personally don't love it when exporting reports because it makes it trickier to do VLOOKUPs and data scrubbing, but it does make it prettier. So just depending on your audience, you may or may not want to use that function. Let me actually ungroup it. So going back to the report, to ungroup it, again, you just highlight the column and just select that same icon again. And then if we were to run this ungrouped, you can see that it's going to list the cost center on every single row versus lumping it together. All right, so that's grouping and sorting. The next thing I want to talk about is qualifiers. So how do you change the scope of the report and limit the employees that are showing up within the report? How do you determine who is in the report? That is going to be based on your filters. So to change your filters, you're going to go to report, and then under queries, you're going to click query 1. And then over here where detail filters is, that's where you're going to set up those expressions. So in order to set up an expression, you have to drag a data item into that filter. So you can either use an existing data item that's already within your report, or you can find one within the package and drag it from there. Either way works. So let's start with employee status because I think that's a common filter that I use when building reports. So let's say we wanted this report to only pull active employees. To do that, you would just highlight employment status code, drag that over to detail filters. And then if you're just wanting it to pull in one code, you would use the equal sign. If you're trying to pull in multiple codes, you would use the in. So I'm going to show you two different examples. First example is equals, and we're going to say tick, A for active, and then tick. I don't know if tick is the accurate word for that, but that's what I call it. And so this example here would just be active employees only. Now, this is not a prompt, this is a qualifier. So this is going to run automatically. It's not something that the user would select when running the report. Anytime you create an expression or a filter, you want to make sure that you're validating it. And to validate it, you're just going to click this little check mark. And validating is just checking the coding, making sure that it's written correctly and there's no errors. So once you get the no error information box, you're good to go and you can just hit OK. Now let's say we wanted to change this to multiple options. Again, we're going to replace the equal sign with in, and then we're going to have a parentheses. We'll have our first option, comma, and then our second option. Actually, let's say leave of absence. So L for leave of absence, and then in parentheses. This is how you would pull a report for both active and leave of absence employees. Again, you're going to want to validate it. And then once you see that no errors message, then you can hit OK. By default, the filter is going to be required. You can change that. So I will show you an example of when you might want to do that with an actual prompt. The last option I wanted to show you is not equals to. So you would just use the not equal sign and then your code. So when I am setting up reports that are for non-terminated employees, this is the expression that I always use. I wouldn't recommend just doing equals active because you're going to lose leave of absence employees. Maybe you're going to lose suspended employees. So this is the best way to make sure that you're receiving all employees outside of terminated. Again, we're going to hit validate and then we're going to hit OK. By the way, I will post all these filters within the body of this post so that you can use them going forward too. All right, so let's say we want to create a prompt now. In order to create a prompt without a prompt page, you can also use these detailed filters option. So let's say we wanted to create a prompt based on org level 1 or what we're calling cost center. What you're going to do is you're going to highlight or hover over the data item and drag it. And then depending on if you want users to be able to select one code or multiple codes, you're either going to put equals, which again is one code, or in, which is multiple. Then you're going to use a question mark. You're going to type in a word and a question mark. I have found that the word doesn't really matter because the header is still going to show based on the data item. So I usually just use something that makes sense based on what the type of prompt is. So in this example, maybe code is too generic. We'll just say org level. Now we're going to hit the validate option, and that's actually going to show you what the prompt looks like, which is pretty neat. So you can see it still shows org level 1 code, and then from here you can see the different options. Looks like they actually have a blank code in this test environment, which is why it's showing that way. But because I did the in option, you can actually select multiple just by holding down the shift or control option. And then you'll just hit OK. And that's just going to validate that prompt and make sure that there's no errors. We're going to hit OK. Now let's say we wanted to add another prompt based on status, right? So instead of the report defaulting to non-terminated employees, let's say we wanted the user to choose it when running the report. We're just going to change this again to in, and we'll say question mark status, question mark, delete this part, and we'll hit the validate button. And no errors. So we'll hit OK. And now we have prompts based on status and org level. So let's say we wanted these to be optional. We didn't want them to be required. All you have to do is hit the usage rule here and just change that to optional. Once you do that, you'll notice that this little icon becomes a little bit like blurry, faded. That's how you know it's an optional prompt. One last note, you can also have qualifiers and prompts together. So right now we're just looking at 2 prompts. Let's say that we wanted just one specific company. We can also set that up like this so that the report is by default only pulling company code ABC, but users also have the ability to filter it down even further when they're running the report. So hopefully that was helpful for you. Tomorrow we're going to talk about expressions and more reporting stuff. So stay tuned and thanks for watching.